Welcome to a story where the sun shines bright over Anaheim, but the real warmth comes from unexpected connections. Meet Ivory, a 56-year-old woman who, after years of routine, finds herself longing for the thrill of her past. What happens when she returns to the water and encounters a captivating young swimmer named Mike? Dive in with us to explore the twists and turns of rediscovery, desire, and the spark of life that can ignite at any age. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing tales. I'm Ivory Mitchell, a 56-year-old residing in Anaheim, California, where palm trees dance in the wind and the sun appears to glow more brightly each day. I've been happily married to my husband, Richard, for 28 years. Richard is a reliable and steady man, always home for dinner. However, he enjoys his routines, loving his recliner, evening beer, and whatever sports game is on. I've never been that way. Even in my mid-50s, I yearned for activity and the exhilaration of testing my physical limits. In my younger days, I was a competitive swimmer, dedicating countless hours to perfecting my strokes. My muscles were toned, and my heart was filled with resolve. Swimming was my joy, my escape, and my identity. But life often steers us away from our passions. Marriage, career, raising children, all these responsibilities consumed me, and swimming became a distant memory. Now, with grown kids and fewer demands, I find myself feeling unsettled. Richard is happy in his comfort zone, but I can't ignore the feeling that there's more out there for me. I long for the energetic woman I once was, who embraced life wholeheartedly. One peaceful afternoon, as I sipped tea by the window, an idea struck me. Why not return to swimming? It had been over 25 years since my last dive, but the thought of the cool water enveloping me was irresistible. The next day, I found myself at the local recreation center, a bag over my shoulder, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement. The pool was just as I remembered, bright, sparkling, and alive with laughter and splashes. It was during that third visit, as I pushed myself to swim extra laps, that I noticed him, a dark figure gliding effortlessly through the water. His strokes were powerful and precise, almost mesmerizing. I paused, watching as he emerged from the pool. He was young, no more than 21 or 22, with smooth, dark skin that shimmered under the lights. His physique was impressive: broad shoulders, a sculpted chest, and strong arms. His movements were confident yet humble, as if he belonged in the water. I tried to avert my gaze, but I kept glancing back. There was something compelling about him, a quiet intensity that drew me in. As he toweled off, our eyes met briefly, and I felt a surge of energy. I told myself it was just admiration for a skilled swimmer, but his image lingered in my mind that evening. I couldn't stop thinking about him, his strength, his grace, the way his muscles moved. It was all I could see when I closed my eyes. I felt a mix of excitement, curiosity, and a longing I hadn't experienced in years. Over the next few days, I found myself searching for him at the pool, hoping to see him swim again. When I finally did, I felt a rush of relief and something deeper, something I wasn't ready to acknowledge. After my swim, as I sat by the pool catching my breath, he approached me. "Hi," he said, his voice deep and warm. "I've seen you here a few times. You're a good swimmer." His words surprised me, and I laughed nervously. "I used to be," a long time ago. Now I'm just trying to keep up." He smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. "I'm Mike," he said, extending his hand. "Ivory," I replied, feeling the strength in his grip. We chatted for a few minutes, and I learned he was a fitness trainer at a nearby gym, swimming to stay fit and unwind after helping others reach their goals. Our conversation flowed naturally, feeling both unexpected and comforting. As I drove home that evening, my mind was racing. Meeting Mike had ignited something within me, something I hadn't felt in years. His presence, his confidence, the way he made me feel seen, it was exhilarating. That night, lying in bed next to Richard, who was already softly snoring, I replayed the interaction over and over. Mike's smile, his voice, the way he looked at me, it all felt so vivid and alive. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of excitement, a sense that my life wasn't as settled as I'd thought. Little did I know that meeting Mike was just the start of a journey that would change everything. The days following my encounter with Mike felt different, as if a switch had been flipped. The pool, once a place of quiet escape, now held a new sense of anticipation. Each visit brought the possibility of seeing him again, of hearing his deep voice and sharing those fleeting, electric moments. I tried to rationalize it. Mike was young, vibrant, and full of energy, qualities I admired and missed in my own life. Yet, despite convincing myself it was merely appreciation, I couldn't dismiss how he persistently occupied my thoughts. The third instance I encountered him, a smile naturally formed on my face before any words were exchanged. He was leaning by the pool's edge, his strong, dark arms casually resting on the tiles. His expression was relaxed, yet focused, as he observed the swimmers. When he spotted me, his grin broadened, and a warmth unrelated to the water's temperature washed over me. "Hey, Ivory," he called out, his voice piercing through the surrounding noise. "Hi, Mike," I responded, approaching him while trying to conceal my racing heart. "You're here again." "I knew you couldn't resist," he joked, his tone light-hearted and playful. I laughed, brushing away a wet strand of hair from my face. "I could say the same for you," I replied. We chatted for some time, our conversation flowing effortlessly. He shared details about his job as a fitness coach and his enthusiasm for aiding people in transforming their bodies and minds. I revealed fragments of my own journey, explaining how swimming had once been my entire world before I stepped away for marriage, children, and adult responsibilities. "You're truly skilled," he remarked at one point, his gaze sweeping across the pool. "Your form is excellent. It's clear you were once a dedicated swimmer." I smiled nostalgically. Now I'm just attempting to regain a bit of what I used to have. "You still possess it," he asserted, his voice genuine and low. His words resonated with me more deeply than anticipated. It wasn't just his statement, but the sincerity in his voice and the way his eyes met mine, as if he truly saw me, not just a middle-aged woman striving to stay fit, but me, Ivory. As we parted ways, he briefly clasped my shoulder, a simple gesture that left me shaken. His touch was firm, warm, and lingering, just enough to send a shiver through me. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about him, His voice, his smile, the way his muscles flexed beneath his skin as he swam, it all replayed in my mind like a continuous loop. I found myself scrutinizing every word, every glance, every brief touch, searching for significance in moments that had felt so natural in real time. My days began to center around my pool visits. It was no longer just about swimming. It was about seeing Mike, feeling the surge of energy his presence brought. I started paying more attention to my appearance before leaving, choosing flattering swimsuits and styling my hair in a way that seemed effortless yet intentional. Each meeting with Mike strengthened our bond. We'd laugh about trivial things, like how the water was always too chilly or how seriously the lifeguards took their jobs. But beneath our playful exchanges, there was an unspoken yet undeniable connection. One day, after a long swim, I found myself openly admiring him. The way the water clung to his skin, accentuating every curve of his muscles, was captivating. His broad shoulders and powerful chest made his arms look like they could carry the world. "You swim as if you were born in the water," I blurted out. He laughed, a deep, rich sound that sent a wave of warmth through me. "That's quite the compliment coming from you," he replied, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I felt myself blush, a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. It was both thrilling and frightening. That night, as I sat quietly in my living room with Richard asleep in his chair, I retraced the day's events in my mind, the way Mike smiled, the way his voice softened when he said my name, the way his touch lingered just a moment longer than necessary. It was all so vivid, so alive. For the first time in years, I felt a longing that transcended the physical, a hunger for connection, for passion, for the kind of spark that had been absent from my life for so long. And Mike, he was that spark. The idea of inviting him to my home crept into my mind slowly, like a seed taking root. At first, it seemed absurd, even reckless, but as the days passed, it began to feel inevitable. I convinced myself it was innocent, that I merely wanted to thank him for his kindness, to share a moment of connection outside the pool. But deep down, I knew there was more to it. As the plan took shape, I felt a mix of excitement and fear, unlike anything I'd experienced in years. Little did I know that decision would alter everything. The thought of inviting Mike into my home felt bold, almost reckless, but it lingered in my mind like a secret I couldn't shake. I told myself it was harmless, that I just wanted to thank him for his support, for making me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. However, deep within, I was certain there was an unvoiced yet undeniable force drawing me to him. It was a balmy night when the opportunity finally arrived. I spotted Mike at the pool, as usual, slicing through the water with an ease that always captivated me. His dark skin shimmered under the fluorescent lights, every muscle defined and precise as he swam. I could have observed him endlessly, but I made myself concentrate on my own laps, acting as if I didn't notice the quick glimpses he threw my way. Later, as we stood by the pool's edge, catching our breath, I took a deep inhale and said, "Mike, could I ask a favor?" "Of course," he responded, his tone warm and inviting. I paused, suddenly conscious of my vulnerability. my heart pounding as I attempted to sound nonchalant. I've been feeling a bit off lately, probably pushing too hard at the pool. I live nearby, and I was thinking, would you mind accompanying me home, just in case I feel faint? His brow creased with worry. Are you all right? Do you need to sit down? No, no, it's nothing serious, I assured him. Swiftly, I continued. I just feel more secure knowing someone's with me. He nodded, his expression softening. Of course, I'd be happy to. As we walked through the tranquil streets, I tried to keep the chat light, but my nerves hummed with anticipation. Mike's presence was compelling. Every movement, every word, even his posture, radiated strength and assurance. He spoke about his job at the fitness center, his passion for swimming, and his plans to compete in a triathlon. I listened attentively, absorbing every detail, every glimpse into his life. When we reached my house, I lingered at the door, not wanting the moment to end. Would you like to come in for a bit? I could use some water, and you're welcome to have a drink too. Mike smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Sure, I could use a break. Inside, the house was quiet except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Richard was working the night shift, and the empty space felt both freeing and filled with potential. I led Mike into the kitchen, pouring us each a glass of water as he leaned against the counter. I couldn't help but notice how the light highlighted the contours of his face, the sharp angles of his jaw, the fullness of his lips. You have a lovely home, he said, his voice low and sincere. Thank you, I replied, feeling a flutter in my chest. It's been our place for years, but sometimes it feels more like his than ours, you know? Mike's eyes softened. I understand. It's important to have something that's yours. His words resonated, and I looked away, my fingers tracing the rim of my glass. The silence between us was thick, almost tangible, and when I finally looked back, his gaze was locked on mine. It wasn't just a look, it was a connection, a pull that made my breath hitch. Mike, I said softly, my voice trembling slightly, thank you for walking me home. I didn't mean to bother you. It's no bother, he replied, stepping closer. I'm glad I could help. He was standing so near now, his presence overwhelming in the best possible way. I could feel the heat radiating off him, the strength in his posture, and for a moment, the rest of the world faded away. My hand, almost of its own accord, brushed against his arm, and I felt the taut muscles beneath his skin. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned into the touch, his eyes searching mine for something unspoken. The room seemed to tilt, the air heavy with anticipation. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, but all I could focus on was him, his warmth, his strength, the way his mere presence made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in years. Ivory, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Are you okay? Okay, I nodded, my throat dry, unable to form the words I wanted to say. Instead, I reached up, my hand resting lightly on his chest. His heartbeat was steady and strong beneath my palm, grounding me even as the moment felt impossibly surreal. Time seemed to stand still as we stood there, the distance between us narrowing with every passing second. I felt a surge of emotions, fear, desire, exhilaration colliding within me, leaving me breathless. And as Mike's hand gently touched mine, his eyes never leaving mine, I knew there was no turning back. The tension in the room was palpable, a quiet storm that threatened to consume us both. And yet, for the first time in years, I didn't feel lost or unsure. I felt alive. Mike's hand rested over mine, warm and steady, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. His presence filled the room, overwhelming in the most beautiful way. The distance between us disappeared, as though it had never existed. His dark eyes searched mine, filled with a mix of curiosity and something deeper, something that made my heart race. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked again, his voice soft but filled with concern. "I'm fine," I whispered, my words catching in my throat. Thank you for being here." He smiled, a gentle, genuine expression that made my knees weak. "I'm glad I am." The silence between us was heavy with unspoken words. My hand, still resting on his chest, felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, a grounding reminder of the man standing before me. My eyes traced the sharp lines of his jaw, the fullness of his lips, and the strength etched into every inch of his body. It was impossible not to admire him, to feel drawn to him in a way that defied logic. I stepped back, breaking the moment before it consumed me entirely. "Would you like to sit? The couch is more comfortable." He nodded, following me into the living room. I tried to compose myself, to still the whirlwind of emotions coursing through me. The strain between us was palpable. I settled onto the sofa, and he took a seat next to me. His presence was as calm and stabilizing as ever. "Do you ever feel like you're lacking something?" I asked, the words escaping before I could hold them back. He tilted his head, pondering my question. "What do you mean?" he asked. I paused, trying to find the right words. "Like there's a part of you that's been dormant for so long, you almost forgot it existed. And then one day, something awakens it, and you can't disregard it anymore." His eyes softened, and he leaned in, resting his elbows on his knees. "Yeah, I think everyone experiences that sometimes." I looked down at my hands, wringing them anxiously in my lap. It's odd. For so long, I thought I was content, even happy. But recently, I've felt different, like I'm perceiving everything more clearly, yet it's also more bewildering. Mike extended his hand, lightly brushing against mine. The touch was gentle, almost tentative, but it sent a surge through me. "Sometimes clarity isn't about having all the answers," he said. "Sometimes it's just about being truthful with yourself." His words lingered in the air, filling the quiet space between us. I looked up at him, my heart racing as our eyes met. There was something in his gaze that made me feel vulnerable, as if he could see every thought and emotion I was trying to conceal. "Ivory," he said softly, his voice steady, "I don't want to make you uncomfortable." "You're not," I replied quickly, my voice barely a whisper. It's been so long since I felt." I stopped, unable to finish the sentence, but I didn't need to. Mike's expression changed. His eyes filled with a quiet understanding that made my chest ache. He reached for my hand again, his fingers warm and strong as they wrapped around mine. "You deserve to feel alive," he said, his words simple yet powerful. The room seemed to shift, the air thick with tension and anticipation. My gaze fell to his hand on mine, the strength of his grip grounding me, even as my thoughts whirled. I knew what I was feeling was risky, but I couldn't stop myself from leaning into it, from leaning into him. Before I could second guess myself, I closed the distance between us, my hand moving to his shoulder. His skin was warm beneath my touch, the muscles firm and unyielding. He didn't pull away. Instead, he turned toward me, his gaze steady and unwavering. "Ivory," he said again, his voice softer this time. I just... I trailed off, my voice breaking. "I've been so lost, Mike." "You're not lost," he said gently. "You just needed a reminder of who you are." His words broke something inside me, and before I knew it, I was leaning into him, my head resting against his chest. His arms came around me, strong and comforting, holding me in a way that felt safe, yet exhilarating. I closed my eyes, letting the moment wash over me, my breath slowing to match the steady rhythm of his. The world outside faded away, leaving only the quiet hum of our shared space. His presence was overwhelming, yet I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about what was right or wrong. I wasn't thinking about anything at all. Only the way his arms felt around me, the way his touch sent shivers down my spine, the way he made me feel alive. "I'm here," he whispered, his voice a steady anchor. "Whatever you need, Ivory, I'm here." And in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. For what felt like an eternity, we sat there, wrapped in the silence that held more weight than any words could. Mike's presence filled the room in a way that felt overwhelming yet reassuring. His arms steady and warm, circling me as though they were meant to, as though I belonged there against his chest, where the rhythm of his heartbeat grounded me. "Ivory," he said again, his voice breaking through the quiet. It wasn't a question this time. It was a statement, a calling of my name that pulled me deeper into the moment. I pulled back just enough to look up at him, my eyes meeting his. His gaze was a mix of concern, curiosity, and something deeper, something that made my chest tighten and my breath hitch. For the first time in years, I felt as though someone was truly seeing me not as a wife, not as a woman of a certain age, but as a person, whole and complete. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low and steady, yet filled with genuine care. I nodded, though the lump in my throat made it hard to speak. "I'm more than okay," I whispered. I didn't realize how much I needed this." His eyes softened, and he reached up to brush a tear from my cheek with his thumb. The touch was gentle, hesitant, and it sent a shiver through me. "You deserve to feel this way," he said, "to feel alive." The words settled into the space between us, sinking into me like seeds taking root. For years, I'd convinced myself that the quiet resignation I felt in my life was normal, that it was just a part of growing older, of settling into a marriage that had long since lost its spark. But Mike's words, his presence, reminded me of a truth I had buried deep inside, that I was still here, still vibrant, still capable of feeling so much more than I had allowed myself to. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice catching in my throat. "For what?" he asked, his brows furrowing slightly. "For reminding me," I said, my hand moving to rest over his. "Reminding me what it feels like to be seen." Mike didn't respond right away, but his eyes never left mine, The pressure of his hand on mine and the steady warmth of his presence conveyed more than any words could. Gradually, he leaned in, his actions measured, as if offering me every chance to retreat. Yet, I didn't. I couldn't. Our lips met in a kiss that felt like both a burst of fireworks and a gentle revelation. It wasn't hurried or chaotic. It was intentional, slow, and filled with a depth that left me breathless. His hands cupped my face, firm yet tender, holding me as if I were something treasured. The kiss grew more intense, and with it came a surge of feelings I hadn't experienced in years. Desire, yes, but also a yearning for closeness, for intimacy, for the kind of passion that makes you feel alive in every way. My fingers moved to his shoulders, tracing the firm lines of his muscles, amazed at the strength and power beneath my touch. The world around us seemed to fade, blurring into the background as we lost ourselves in each other. His hands moved to my back, pulling me closer, and I felt the heat of his body against mine, anchoring me in the moment. There was no past, no future, only the present, and it was exhilarating. "Are you sure, Mike?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper as he pulled back slightly, his forehead resting against mine. "Yes," I breathed, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "I've never been more sure." What followed was a quiet tempest, a dance of passion and vulnerability that felt both thrilling and frightening. Mike's touch was confident yet careful, his movements deliberate, as if he were determined to make every moment count. My heart raced as he guided me, his presence both overwhelming and grounding. Time seemed to stand still as we explored the boundaries of our connection, our breaths mingling, our hands finding places long forgotten. There was a tenderness in his every action, a silent promise that this moment was as meaningful to him as it was to me. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to let go completely, to surrender to the wave of emotions that had been building since the day I met him. When the storm finally subsided, we lay side by side on the couch, the room bathed in the soft glow of the lamp. My head rested on his chest, the steady rise and fall of his breathing lulling me into a peaceful haze. His arm was draped over me, his hand tracing lazy patterns on my shoulder, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt completely at ease. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "For what?" he asked, his tone soft and curious. "For reminding me of who I am," I said. "For making me feel alive again." "You've always had that in you," he replied, his voice steady. "You just needed someone to remind you." We stayed like that for what felt like hours, the quiet of the house wrapping around us like a cocoon. Eventually, though, the reality of time began to creep back in, and Mike sat up, his gaze lingering on me as he adjusted his shirt. "I should go," he said softly, though his tone was laced with reluctance. I nodded, though the thought of him leaving left an ache in my chest. "Thank you for tonight," I said, my voice trembling slightly. Mike smiled, his hand reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my face. "I'll see you at the pool," he said, his words carrying a quiet promise that made my heart flutter. As the door closed behind him, the house felt quieter than it had in years. But it wasn't the kind of quiet that weighed heavy. It was peaceful, filled with the echoes of a night that had changed everything. The following days brought a sense of clarity I hadn't expected. I returned to the pool with a renewed sense of purpose, each visit bringing the chance to see Mike, to feel the spark that had reignited something within me. Our interactions were brief, often limited to smiles and glances exchanged in the water, but they carried a weight that spoke volumes. Richard, oblivious as ever, remained content in his routines, and I didn't feel guilty. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again, vibrant, alive, and full of possibilities. Swimming became more than just a hobby. It became my sanctuary, a place where the noise of the world faded away, and I could reconnect with the parts of myself I had long neglected. And every time I stepped into the water, I felt a quiet thrill of anticipation.